I call the June 5th Assembly Finance Committee meeting to order at 5:31. Ms. Wendell, will you note the roll?
Thank you, Chair Wall. We have all Assembly members present in chambers besides Assembly Member Kelly, who is on Zoom, and Assembly members Hughes, Scandies, Hale, Waffle, Gadak, and Mayor Weldon are absent.
That brings us to approval of minutes. You have the May 22nd AFC meeting minutes. Any objections, changes? Seeing none, those are so moved. That brings us to agenda topics. Ms. Flick, I know you've got some introductions for us. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Wall, and thank you all for being here tonight. I am really happy to introduce one of the clerk's newest staff members. Kevin Allen is in the back of the room, and he will quickly become one of your greatest friends as he'll be working tech for all of the assembly meetings and the standing committee meetings. And so we're also happy to have him here tonight training with Tony, who's been fantastic staffing our meetings here at AFC. So I want to make that introduction. And going well with tonight's main topic, I wanted to introduce you to Mr. Joey DeLuca. He is our new controller. So he has been our revenue officer in Treasury since August. He made a brilliant decision to leave Florida and come to beautiful Juneau. And he's making this his long-term home. And so we're really excited to have him. He has an accounting background, worked in the private sector and the insurance industry. And so we're excited to have his leadership and have his knowledge in our accounting team overseeing accounting, payroll, and accounts payable, which is the controller's division. So those are my introductions tonight.
Thank you for that, and welcome both of you to the team. That brings us to the first agenda topic, reflection on the FY25 Assembly Finance Committee budget process. Speaking with staff, we knew lots of new faces and different new roles as this process, and I know staff wanted to get some feedback so they can do things even better for you next year. So Ms. Flick, I don't know if you want to say a few words before we jump into that discussion.
Chair Wall, apologies to interrupt. I would just like to note for the record that Assembly Member Hughes, Scandies has joined us.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Wall. Great introduction. Yes, a lot of firsts this year in the budget process. First year for our city manager, first year as budget director or finance director. Adrian can keep her job as the budget manager. And we are thankful that she has been here and been the consistent hand throughout the process. There were a few things that were done differently, and so we posed some questions and just, for your reflection, anything you want to share. Everything from timing, we did a full day retreat kind of informational event, which afforded us some breaks on some Wednesday nights through the process. The assembly grant process was changed up a bit as well. Some of the documentation and how we presented information was different this year than you had seen before, but we tried really hard to make sure you had information that was provided in print both ways. And so it would, if there are things that you found that you really used or that you never really looked at, either way is helpful. We want to just make sure that you have everything that you need to make decision. And then, yeah, I guess, I don't know if City Manager Custer has anything she wants to add, but just your thoughts, things that you liked, things that you would like to see different, will help us improve the process for you next year.
I would just add one note that I'm particularly interested in getting your feedback on is Director Flick took a different approach to presenting kind of the numbers and the information, and we really based it on services provided and then some of the changes between last year and this. And I enjoyed that because I got to talk about all the cool things that the city does, but that was the focus. And I heard some feedback that people were like, but we're used to seeing more of the numbers, and so I just want to would appreciate any feedback specifically on that part.
Great, thanks. Well, I'm just going to open it up to the group for any feedback you want to provide. I would say I'd love to hear from everyone at least one thing that you'd want to see again next year that you liked, and one thing that you would love to see added or changed. So I'll just look for volunteers for whoever would like to go first. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I've said out loud before that I thought this was one of the best finance seasons that we'd ever had in terms of the effectiveness and the efficiency that we moved things through, the ease of which we had discussions on really difficult stuff, but we're able to have great conversation about it. I really, out of 6 budgets, this one was my favorite one to participate in. Having the Saturday where it was a little tough on that Saturday, but the effect that it had on the whole season of kind of making it more efficient, and it just made everything go so much better. The only request I was going to have was on the community grant request. If there could be like a paragraph at the top of the form, so that way every group that wanted to have a community grant request would know exactly what was expected of them in terms of information to provide to us. And then instructions on, you need to get this to your assembly sponsor by this day, and then your assembly sponsor needs to do this with it. And that was the only part of the whole process that I just wasn't crystal clear on, but I knew eventually if I got it to you guys, it would make it to the meeting. So that's what was fine with me. But you guys did great at giving us the schedule. And if we just incorporate a little bit of that into the community grant request, you need to have your stuff by this meeting, and then we'll talk about you on this meeting. Only to fine tune just the phenomenal job that Chair Wall did. I'll keep my comments to that. I know you guys have other great stuff to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bryson. I saw Miss Hughes Candies and then Mr. Kelly.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I would echo, I thought it was a great budget season this time. I found that as an experiment, I thought the Saturday really worked. I thought people were engaged throughout it. I liked that it provided such context at the beginning in a way, kind of bigger picture before we went on, and allowed us to really dig in. I think the Wednesdays off did allow people to do some more of their own digging, talk to staff, do some soul searching on some of the decisions they would have to make. So I thought that was good, and then we'd just need to look carefully at the scheduling, obviously, when we set up something like that. I liked the community grant request a lot, and I don't think we can't ask staff, and I really think because the budget process is so dynamic, we can't truly say don't sponsor something if you're not going to vote for it, because you don't know what else is going to happen. But maybe that's something I'd add to our agreements, is try not to sponsor something unless you're pretty damn sure you're going to vote for it. And I think as far as any having things presented as like city services, that worked fine for me. As long as the number is there with it, it is kind of nice to know what's going on. I think the only potential tweak that I would make to the process, or with hindsight, was building in that, making sure we have that sufficient time for the manager to speak to city increments or city cuts. And maybe that could have been in another meeting. And that's just the way it played out. But yeah, no, I thought it was there was quite a lot I liked about it, so I'll leave it with those.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. And of course, as soon as I come on, we're getting an airport announcement, so I hope that doesn't come through in the message. Let's see. Oops. Are you guys able to hear me all right?
You can.
Okay, good. I was going to suggest, I think I did like the efficiency of the grant process. I think maybe a potential improvement. Like, I think in my experience, like there were some projects that I wasn't approached for that I might have been interested in sponsoring. And so I was thinking that perhaps a more, some sort of improvement might be where people could just like apply in general, and then if assembly members wanted to sponsor something, they could get on to that. So maybe a hybrid of what we did this time where people, where maybe the groups could shop assembly sponsors, but also like they could just apply in general, and then assembly members like myself who might see something they're interested in would be able to apply. Because especially I think as a new assembly member, I think some organizations might not have been aware of what I would be interested in supporting, might not have known to approach me. And if we get new assembly members this coming year, it might be the same sort of deal. So it's just a thought or a possible suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Smith or Ms. Atkinson, go ahead.
I didn't raise my hand because I felt like my stuff was kind of already covered. I really liked the long Saturday. For me, that was really great to do it all at once because then you feel very in it and you can contextualize everything. I do agree I would have liked more time for the manager's budget. And I think there were some rough patches with the community grant process, which I really did like. I think a lot of that will be ironed out just by nature of repeating it a second time. I think there was some confusion on, what exactly assembly members were supposed to do and what staff was supposed to do. And so I think that probably will just be ironed out now that we've been through it once, so.
Mr. Smith.
Thanks. I think echo most of those comments already. Yes to Saturday. I agree with Ms. Atkinson on the grant and just, and some of it I think was my failing of not probably asking, but probably I should have better informed my community organizations like when they needed to be there. And anyway, echo the parts on like just really clearly noticing increments or decrements from the previous fiscal year, just so it's like cut and dry. I mean, for me, I would just want the number and the thing, and then we can, if I need to ask more, I could. I'm looking at the questions from Manager Kester's May 24th thing, and it would also ask about I thought it asked about the benefit of having the budget conversation at the December retreat. I definitely think so. I think that was good for us to then have to be thinking about it early. Things can change obviously, but at least we were like, okay, mill rate, okay, debt service mill rate, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think it was well executed, and good job to you, Chair Wall, and of course staff doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So thanks.
I'll just say quickly, I agree with, almost everything everyone said. I would add, I felt like our agreements really helped us. People were so kind of attentive to making things go well after that conversation. So I liked that was fun. And I think the community grant request, I agree with everyone. I think we could it's probably a lot to expect all the assembly members to be as responsive to the community partners as we would needed to be. And so maybe it's, as simple as we decide what we want to sponsor, we help the group be strategic about what they're asking for. And then we ask staff to kind of play a communication role so that there's clear expectations around when and what, just because that's a lot for many of us. I know it's a lot for staff too, but anyways, yeah. Staff, anything else you need from us?
No, thank you for the feedback. If you think of something later, please feel free to drop an email or let us know.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to our FY23 audit. Ms. Tarver, thank you for being here. If you want to come make your way to the microphone. I don't know, Ms. Flick, if there's anything you want to say before we jump in?
I don't know that Ms. Tarver needs a lot of introduction. She has worked with CBJ for many years conducting our audit. I think I know that we loaded your inboxes with tons of information, and the presentation that she's prepared for you is going to give you some information today, but also be a resource for you in the future. So with that, it's been a pleasure to work with LG Rayfield, and I'm excited to hear what Karen has to say. I am not expecting any surprises as we have talked. So I'll just turn it right over to you.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here this evening. Thank you for the introduction. Again, I'm the engagement partner for the CBJ audit, and I am here to present the results of the CBJ audit and also at a high level, the Bartlett and Juneau School District audits for fiscal year 23. As your external auditors, we work for you, the Assembly. And I think that's just something to keep in mind, that while we work very closely with management and staff, it is you that we work for and you report to. So as Ms. Flick indicated, I gave you a lot of information. The PowerPoint, I think, is 72 slides long, starting on page 15 of your packet. And don't worry, we're going to skip through a lot of that. But again, I wanted to provide you the details so you can go back to it later if you want to. A quick overview of what we're going to include is an introduction of the audit teams, kind of an overview of the audit and the audit process, your reporting structure. And then we will go through the results of each audit. So
Ms. Tarver, before you get started, do you mind if we ask questions throughout, if we
feel
have them?
free to
Okay.
interrupt as we go. I'll try to watch my notes and watch you. So
Thanks.
thank you. So if Adrian wants to go ahead and advance to the first slide, this is our audit teams. Obviously, it's not just me doing your audit. We have a lot of individual people helping. I have two people here. I'd like to introduce Sarah Griffith, who is seated to my right behind me. She is the quality control partner over these engagements. So you'll notice she's not part of the team. That's an industry standard approach to quality control, and that a non-engagement team member does a final review of our work to ensure we're in compliance with our audit standards. And the other person behind me is Jill Smith, and she's a manager with our firm and helps with all three of these audits. Adam Sykes couldn't attend. He is the audit partner over the Bartlett audit, and then I also oversee the CBJ and Juneau School District audits. So on the next slide, what we audit, and we can go ahead, and we audit the financial statements of the three entities. For CBJ specifically, it's an ACFR, which is Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, which we'll see on the slide. And so your ACFR is about 247 pages long. And if we'll just go to the next slide, please. Or actually, we'll go a couple more. There we go. So this is lifted out of your ACFR, and it just shows you the different sections, basically. This is part of what's called the management discussion analysis, and it is a great narrative that management puts at the beginning of your ACFR that gives you a narrative overview of the financial results for the fiscal year. And with the next slide, just a reminder that while we often talk about the audit of CBJ, we actually have multiple opinion units. So each major, what's called a major fund, we're actually issuing an opinion over, and then the non-major are aggregated together and we issue an opinion over that as well. We also do the financial statement audits and then also the compliance audits, so both federal and state for school district and the city. And we can go ahead to the next slide. So again, timing of the audits. We did have delays in issuance for both the city and Bartlett this year. We'll touch on that in a little bit, that there were delays and there were some new accounting standards that had to be implemented, which caused delays, as well as turnover and shorthandedness, which unfortunately most businesses and organizations are experiencing, resulted in delays in getting the information we needed to complete our audits. And as part of the audits, we meet with members of the Assembly or the boards with discussions with Chair Wall. She indicated an interest in having me present to you a little bit more information on kind of what an audit is, or the audit process. So the slides starting at page 23 are intended to provide you some detailed information, and I will go through these somewhat quickly. Again, the information is here if you need it. But again, this slide is really showing you from beginning to end the audit process with the key item being the risk assessment. That's one of the main parts of the audit, is identifying where there could be risk of material misstatement. On the next slide, these are a few terms I just wanted to make sure, and you've probably had a chance to read through the materials, but the word material is important in that it is really looking at what is the amount at which could influence the users of the financial statements as far as making judgments about financial information. For test of controls, these are controls that we are testing, some of your key controls that management's can put into place. And based on that, then we can project the results of that testing out to your expenses or your revenue, and where those controls are operating effectively, we know that the risk of misstatement is lower in those areas. We use what's called statistical sampling, which means we're picking samples of about 40 to 60 transactions per population. That gives us about a 90 to 95% confidence level as far as projecting those results out to the populations. That if within our sample controls are working, then 95% confidence that they're working in the whole population. We obviously can't audit every transaction. I think that's a question we get a lot. So there are also different types of audits. So again, Bartlett engaged for a forensic audit a couple of years ago as a result of internal controls that were identified in the audit. A forensic audit is really oriented toward finding evidence of financial wrongdoing, while the financial statement audit, which is the type we do, is really assessing the accuracy and reliability of the financial information that's prepared by management. The last term on the slide is the substantive test. These really are specific procedures looking for whether an account balance or disclosure is correct. These includes looking at confirmations of external information with bank statements, insurance records, visual inspections of inventory or capital assets. On page 25, the risk assessment, this gives you a lot of information about it, but key takeaway kind of here is that the word material is included in here a lot. And that is because when we're doing our risk assessment, we are, again, assessing that risk to determine where there could be material misstatement or material noncompliance. And I included as bullet points few different items or areas that we do, procedures we do during that risk assessment. A lot of it is what we call walkthroughs, which is sitting down with management. In fact, we just did one today over your payroll system, sitting down with payroll staff and walking through essentially their processes from start to end. How does someone get hired? Who approves it? How does that get coded? All that kind of information. And then from that, we identify what the different key controls are. And on the next slide, that is where we then move into the testing phase. And the main control cycles that we test for you are disbursement, which include payroll and purchasing, the revenue cycle, which is billing and cash receipts, and this is especially important at Bartlett Regional Hospital, and then grant compliance, which impacts all three of your entities. And again, we use statistical sampling for the most part in these areas. The next slide outlines some of the key risk factors that impacted our FY23 audit. As mentioned, there were delays in the implementation of new accounting standards that impacted the ability to do that work. With a delay, people could be rushing to get things done, and so that is a risk essentially that we identified. You also had a lot of COVID-funded programs that have a higher risk due to some of the flexibility in that spending and making sure that it was properly authorized and eligible for reimbursement. Also, you had immaterial account balances at Bartlett with increased risks that had been identified in prior years. As I mentioned, turnover and staffing shortages, thank you, at all the entities. And we also had the budgetary compliance at school district, which had been a finding in the FY22 audit and then again in FY23. So the next slide is really. again,
Miss
welcome.
Tarver, just because I think we've talked about, would you go back one more slide? That one before, the increased audit risk over budgetary compliance, was that about the school districts kind of not catching up to the timing that they were supposed to be reporting? Is that, am I correct? Just because people are familiar kind of with that
Right. So
issue.
the FY22 finding that kind of rolled into FY23 and caused us to look at the budget in closer focus was related to the fact that there wasn't monitoring controls over the budget in such that the budget was overexpended, and the processes that the school district had in place meant that the increase to the overall spending that the CBJ approves essentially was not done in a timely manner or in agreement with the school district approved budget. And I can go into that further when we're talking about the school district if you'd like. So again, this slide is, the takeaway from this is just that our testing again is to gain assurance whether the amounts are adequately supported, materially correct, and the disclosures are correct as well. So we're going to skip a bunch of slides here, 29 to 36, which has lots of small print on it. And I know I'm looking around and seeing some smiles, so feel free to read this when you feel like it. It is good information, but again, this actually was lifted from our most recent proposal for audit services. And so if you wanted to read it in its entirety, you could go back to our original proposal. Again, the procedures change year to year based on risk factors, management assertions, and materiality, but included in those slides are standard approaches that we take to those audit areas. On page 37, which looks like we're on, great, is the conclusion of the audit. So again, when we get done, so we basically have to kind of step back and look at what adjustments did we identify, what did management maybe identify, but maybe not correct during the audit process. We look at, well, we tested those controls. Did we find issues with the controls that led us to have to do more audit work? Did we find balances that weren't correct, right? So that is, and it's not just numbers, it's also the notes to the financial statements, which we refer to as disclosures. Those also have to be materially correct and in accordance with what's called generally accepted accounting principles. So that was Auditing 101 in a nutshell. So if anyone's looking for a job, we're always looking for new auditors. So I know not everyone, not everyone's cup of tea, but so I think, you know, it's important to understand what is included in an audit. Equally important is to understand what's not in an audit. So that is some of what I attempted to do, to explain kind of what we do when we're doing an audit. There's definitely a mystery involved with that. My mom still doesn't understand what I do and thinks I do taxes, so. But the terms and audit processes I just presented, you'll notice as we work through your audit opinion, you're going to see basically exactly what I talked about is included in your audit opinion. And so if we'll advance to page 38, this is a summary of our opinions for CBJ. And actually we can go to the next page, which is the first paragraph of your opinion letter. For those of you that maybe were around audit reports in the past, the opinion used to be at the end of the letter, and our industry decided a couple years ago that the opinion needed to be the first paragraph because that's the most important one. So that is the one we're going to focus on. And your opinion is what's called an unmodified opinion. That's exactly what you want. Again, we're opining on the material accuracy of your financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And on your federal report, I didn't bring up those, but very similar, we're issuing an opinion over your federal major programs. We had one qualification for a program related to reporting, and the rest were unmodified. And for your state major programs, you had, again, no qualifications for your major programs. You did have one reportable condition, also reporting related to a non-major program. So on page 39 is Just one more page, I think. There we go. So what I wanted to just highlight here again is these are your basic financial statements. So within that ACFR, a lot of information. This is essentially your government-wide and your fund statements and the notes to the financial statements. And that's what's referred to as your basic financial statements. And that is actually what our opinion covers. And then we'll cover the other information that's in your ACFR in a few slides here. The next slide is the basis of our opinion. So we've kind of gone through this as we talk through the audit process, that we have industry standards. They're generally accepted auditing standards, which we call GAS, or they're government auditing standards, which we call GUGAS. So I don't know who comes up with the acronyms, but so, and this is the kind of three important things to take away from this is we have to follow the standards, we have to be independent, and we have to base our opinions on appropriate and sufficient audit evidence. So the next slide outlines management's responsibilities. So this is standard wording that's required to be in our report. And actually, I'm going to suggest we go to the next slide, which is page 43. This is lifted from your ACFR as well. And this is from the transmittal letter. So this is from management to you. And this also describes their responsibility. It actually is great because it outlines the requirement to have an audit, why the city does an audit, and then the final paragraph again, is management asserting that they're responsible for the internal controls put in place, both design, implementation, operation, as well as the preparation of your financial statements. So on slide 44, our report goes through and outlines our responsibilities as your auditors. One key thing, a term maybe that we didn't already define, is reasonable assurance. So this is basically defined as high level, not absolute, and does not guarantee that an audit will always detect material misstatement. So there's always what we call an audit risk. Again, think about our samples giving us that 90 to 95% confidence level. There's always a risk that we're not going to find something. You can read through the whole paragraph at your leisure. It does describe kind of when there's higher risk related to certain factors as well. On page 45, again, it describes, because we're using both GAS and GUGAS, as I mentioned, there are some specific requirements that we have to do. And the last bullet point is what I'm doing tonight, which is to communicate the results of the audits to those charged with governance. So this presentation, as long as the documents included in your packet, which are the audited financial statements, the federal single audit, state single audit. You also have a passenger facility charge audit. And then we also have the letter to the assembly, or the school board and hospital board get letters to the board. Their boards, rather. Page 46 is, I mentioned that there is other information in your ACFR. It's called required supplemental information. And the next slide will show you what that part of the ACFR is. And we actually don't issue an opinion over this information. We do make sure that we're looking at it. We make sure management has pulled together information that's not materially inconsistent with your financials, but we don't issue an opinion over this information. And then the next slide illustrates that within our report, there's two types of supplementary information. So this is not required, it's supplementary. It's basically additional information that management can elect to include. And there's part of this, which if we go to the next slide, there is basically information in here that we issue what's called an in relation to. So we make sure we've done enough work on it to issue an in relation to opinion that says this supplementary information in relation to your financial statements is materially correct. And then the other part, we say we don't issue an opinion. The other part is your transmittal letter, so it's the introductory part of your ACFR. So again, that concludes kind of the overview of the CBJ. I will go through the letter to the board, but first I wanted to quickly go through the Bartlett and school district. Their auditor reports that are included with their audited financial statements follow the same format as CBJ. While their supplementary information and the required supplement base may be slightly different, the audit report is the same. So I wasn't going to go through those specifically. But I will go to the next slide, page 50. So for Bartlett, there was an unmodified opinion over the financial statements, which again is what you want. They did have a significant deficiency, so that is a deficiency, a control weakness that raises to the level that we need to make those charging governments know, because it could possibly have resulted in misstatement. And so it related to a new accounting standard, again, that you can point a lot to turnover and shorthandedness. The accounting standard is a very kind of technical, complex one to implement. It related to what we call SPIDS. It's another acronym for you. It is subscription-based information technology agreements, essentially. And what it required was similar to leases, which was implemented in FY22, that bringing those items onto your balance sheets as both assets and liabilities. Those long-term agreements, rather than just expensing them, now are seen as kind of like right-to-use assets and liabilities. So we do a detailed presentation with the Bartlett Board and Finance Committee, and so have provided them all of those. On page 51.
Ms. Tarver, before we, you might be just about to get there, but I was about to, if I remember correctly, there was several years of a significant deficiency with Bartlett.
Correct.
Maybe
So,
that's what you're about
yes,
to
I
talk
know,
to.
and
Okay.
I apologize. I envisioned you each having your own screen and being able to see the PowerPoint. So this is the status of the FY22 finding, which was also, I believe, a carryover from FY21 even. And what this related to is, the internal controls over expenses, specifically credit cards, and through our audit work for FY23, this issue had been sufficiently resolved for FY23 based on our testing. So we did have for Bartlett what we call other matters. So these aren't really to the level of a finding, they're more opportunities for improvement. And so those, it's slides 52 to 54, I'll just quickly go through them. Interfund cash, our recommendation here really is that CBJ and Bartlett work together to jointly evaluate its current processes for any simplification of the joint cash functions that impact both entities. Their AR module or model, this is valuing basically AR. Some of the rates that are used in that modeling have not been updated for several years. Our recommendation is to look at those and update those if needed. And our last recommendation, we identified that there may be some opportunities to increase the collection at discharge for self-pays. A new third-party biller was brought on in May of 23, and we're basically just recommending that Bartlett continue to work with them and see if there's additional opportunities there to improve collections. So school district also had unmodified opinions on the financial statements. And so I have bullet points there that, excuse me, we didn't have any findings or question costs for our compliance program. So again, they have a lot of grant funding, similar to city does as well. So that is very good news that no compliance findings there. While I do have a bullet point that says that there were no audit adjustments, we did have 4 significant deficiencies identified. And so to kind of address the question that was posed earlier, while we did not have material adjustments to the actual amounts for FY23, we spent a considerable amount of time working with management and the board on the budget presentation. As what we found is that the accounting system budgets had not been entered accurately. And since that becomes the basis for preparing the financial statements, there was a lot of time that was incurred going back and reconciling to the approved budget to end up with what needed to be in the financial statements as the approved budget. And sometimes the audit is cited as a source of discovering the deficits for FY22 and 23. So I just want to make sure to clarify, put on the record, that is really the accounting system, the financial statements that are prepared from the system that report the results of the year, not the audit. The audited financial statements present the information. And so the preparation of the financials, which occurs 3 to 4 months after year end, as well as there's adjustments that are happening during that year, do make it difficult for management to always know how the year is ending financially. And that is partly because of their internal reports have not been designed in such a way, nor was the budget information accurate that was in the system. And so as a result, the reports that were being used internally didn't present a true picture of what was happening, and it continued to evolve and change until the audit was complete. And so that's where, it was a bit of a moving target until the audit was complete as far as what those final numbers were. But this information was communicated to those charged in governance, which includes management and the school board in detail for each of those fiscal years. And the resulting noncompliance was reported along with our recommendations to the school board. The significant deficiencies for FY23 related to, again, the SPIDA implementation. Unfortunately, everyone was delayed, and believe me, it wasn't just Juneau. This was kind of nationwide. No one wanted to implement this accounting standard, and it took everyone a while. The other one was, again, the finding that was a continuation from FY22 to FY23, and that related to the financial reporting and city charter compliance, specifically Article 13, Section 7, and School Board Policy 3000. And both of those have to do with ensuring that there's adequate monitoring of the budget and the financial information in order to make informed decisions, as well as making sure that the spending authority is authorized. The other significant deficiency that we had for 2023 was related to Medicaid billing. This was a continuation from the year before as well, that documentation was not sufficient for billing, and so not all services had been billed. So it is good that the services weren't billed from the aspect that you weren't creating a non-compliance situation, but at the same time, it's a missed opportunity for revenue by not billing for those services. And the last significant deficiency we had for them related to the foundation program. One of the things we have to do, it's a non-financial type of test, is we actually go in and have to review student records to make sure that student records are being kept in accordance with the state student record manual. And we found that there were some missing file contents. I'm happy to report, we actually just met with the school district on this a couple days ago, and they have definitely taken action on that and have provided a lot more training and oversight in that area. So we don't expect that to be a problem for fiscal 24.
1 second, we got a question. Miss Hughes Candies.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just so I'm trying to square this in my head, because this is not the first one I've seen, but even so, there are, a lot of different terms to describe different pieces of that. So just use the Medicaid one as an example. An unmodified opinion would not, that's still a significant deficiency on that front, and that is still not resolved, correct?
So the significant deficiency is over the internal controls over financial reporting related to the reporting of the Medicaid revenue, right? So what we looked at there was, did you have internal controls to ensure that you're able to bill for everything you should be able to bill for? And when we did our walkthrough and found that they weren't billing for everything, and so that's why. So our opinion is unmodified because the amounts that they recorded as revenue are reported correctly, but the process by which they were billing had a control weakness in it.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
So we are on finding number 4. So then this just is, again, the prior year status, and both of these were repeated for fiscal 23. So I won't go through those in detail. So also the next slide, page 61, it's very small print. I apologize. You can read this later. But what we included in the letter to the boards, to the school district, was a bullet point list of items that we had talked to with management and the board for fiscal 22 and 23. And this was somewhat at the request of management to help provide a tracking of issues that we discuss with them so that they can continue to work on them. And I've been meeting with the new CFO at the school district, and they are working through this list. So that is good news. And we're almost done. One last document to review. So thank you for your patience. The letter to the board, which starts on slide 62. Just
Hold on, one more
Yes.
question about the school district. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Tarver. You mentioned on one of the audit results that, you had heard back from the school district that they were implementing that. Have they said they're implementing the other ones, and who do they actually tell? Do they tell you, or do they tell you? Who do they tell? Yeah.
through the chair. So very good question. So one of the things we do each year as part of the audit process is go through each of our prior year significant deficiencies or reportable conditions and talk to them about what is the status. We actually ask for a written summary back from management as far as what actions have they taken, do they feel have resolved it, have they not resolved it, and then we actually go through and do our own assessment of whether we feel that it's been sufficiently resolved or not. So we aren't that far into the audit process. We're kind of just in that beginning planning stages. So we've had some initial discussions in order to just determine whether these are going to be current risk for fiscal year 24 or not for the audit, but not the level which I could say whether something's resolved or not, except for the student records. We actually have done that testing already for this year as part of our preliminary testing. And so that's why I felt comfortable sharing that that one had been resolved from what, at least based on our testing to date.
Thank you. And this one's for our staff. Are you involved in those, in hearing, from does the school district, are they just doing that totally separate, or will you be involved in, hearing if they're implementing or addressing certain audit findings?
That's a great question. In my year in this role, the school district has been doing all of that work on their own. They are a component unit, have their own independence from that perspective. I will say with the new CFO, we've had a lot of collaboration over the last few months, and we share central treasury. We need their accounting information. So we do have a lot of touch points with the school district, but as far as addressing some of the specific deficiency, they handle that on their own, and we're there to be a resource as they need it.
All right, let's talk about ours.
Okay, final push here. Page 62 or slide 62 is basically just an illustration of kind of the different sections of the letter to the board. A lot of it we've already touched on, so I'm just going to highlight a few things on slide 63. Again, just kind of highlights the new accounting standards that had to be implemented. There were also some corrections to the lease standard that was implemented in fiscal year 22. And good news is no big new accounting standards in FY24, so everyone can cheer right now. So we also had on slide 64 significant estimates. So this is something that we're supposed to make sure that you're aware of, that there are significant estimates included in your financial statements. Actual results could differ. So we include those that significant estimates that management included in your financial statements. On slide 65, this is really outlining essentially any corrected misstatements, typically material ones that we found, as well as uncorrected. The adjustments that we did have for CBJ were primarily due to management trying to prepare the ACFR draft while we did our audit work. And it is difficult because we're pushing, we're wanting information, and they're trying to prepare it and review it. And a couple times, I think, kind of jumped the gun on giving us some information. And so we felt like, okay, we've audited it and it has changes that need to happen. And I think, again, we've been working with management already in planning the FY24 audit and making sure that there's sufficient time for self-review before information comes to us should resolve this. For those of you that, and we can go ahead to slide 66, that were involved in last year, we had what was called a material weakness. So that is like the highest level of reportable condition we can have for you. That is now a significant deficiency, which is a lower level, and related to the reconciliation timely preparation of your ACFR. So again, there were delays in preparing. Management can speak to kind of the whys that all happened. But because of that and because of the adjustments we did have, it continued to be a reportable condition for FY23. I would suspect if things go as planned for 24, that may go away, hopefully. Per management. So finding 23-002 on page 67, again, you've heard it before, implementation of new accounting standard at all entities. That was a finding. On page slide 68 and 69, these were our two compliance findings, both related to one grant each, different grants, but one federal, one state. And again, these were essentially errors in reporting. Compliance findings are unique in that it's either right or wrong. So we don't have a lot of leeway as far as reporting to you. If a report was wrong, then we report it as a finding. And so again, the controls there were one for the Bartlett one was just a misunderstanding of the instructions for the report, led to information being misreported. And the second, our recommendation does basically suggest for closer coordination between the school district and the city. This was a city-run grant program, but for school district CIP. And the school district prepared the report in error, and it should have been the city that prepared the report. And so unfortunately, the wrong information was pulled and included in the report. So as I mentioned, we go through the prior year status on slide 70. Again, I mentioned you had a material weakness last year. That's we saw remarkable improvement in the process. So while delayed, the process itself, the self-reviews that were built into the preparation process were greatly improved between the 22 and the 23. I think that process, again, was evolving. We didn't issue our FY22 audit till late spring, so it didn't really provide. Same thing with the FY23 audit. We just issued, you only have 2 years of your fiscal year left. So again, progress was made. I would continue to see that progress being into fiscal 24 and 25 as well. And we also, the lease standard was a significant deficiency for last year. It was partially resolved, except for we do recommend that increased documentation of the controls or processes for departments, so that the departments have written instruction on how to make sure the lease information is getting to finance so that they can appropriately update stuff. And that was, again, related to fiscal 23. We already have discussed this for 24, that is occurring. And our last item, as we mentioned for Bartlett, was considered resolved. And so the very last slide 71, I guess it's not quite the last one, second to last, is we also included other internal control matter for the city. And this really relates to a city assessment within essentially the finance department of kind of their policies, procedures, their own internal processes, and identifying those periodically, making sure that information is documented. As I mentioned, there was significant work on this in 23, and that work is continuing into 24 with turnover and shorthandedness. Some of this got slowed down as a result, but progress is being made, has been made. So that ends my remarks. I would like to, though, I know we just ended on the findings, but I'd like to go back to the fact that you have unmodified opinions on all three of your entities. And that is really the important thing to take away. It's something to be proud of. and commend your management for, because they're fulfilling their financial accounting and reporting responsibilities. And it was a lot of hard work that went into making sure that 23 was accounted for. So thank you, Finance and Treasury, and everyone else that we worked with for your assistance. They were all very professional, positive attitudes all around, and their hard work is very appreciated. I'm also letting you, the Assembly members, know that if you want to go through audits and detailed information about the audit process or reports, I'm always available to do that. And if there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Ms. Tarver. Questions for Ms. Tarver or for staff at this time? Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Tarver, just trying to kind of, well, I guess with my very limited understanding of auditing, I guess I'm just kind of looking at some of the numbers provided on, page 6, on slide 65, affordable housing fund, understated by $12,000 and a parking fund overstated by 137. I mean, any of the in terms of like significant, there were just not any, there were no big financial number findings that needed to be changed. Is that, just give me some reassurance on that? Or
Through the chair, I believe those amounts are at the bottom of that list, and those were amounts actually that management passed on adjusting, is what we call it. So they were identified as, but part of it is they were identified so late in the preparation of the ACFR that kind of the evaluation by management is that they weren't going to significantly impact decision-making for FY23, and so they elected to not make those adjustments. A lot of times, again, it's a timing. Audits or the financial statements are picture in time for June 30, 23, and sometimes activity can be recorded in the next fiscal year without a significant impact. So I believe that's what those two were for. So that it's actually the bullet points that are above that. We had some larger amounts related to the recording of the gondola financing, and then also the loans that were made out of the Affordable Housing Fund. They were initially recorded essentially on a budget basis, so expensed, and because there are loans, they needed to be shown as receivables from the entities. And so those were significant amounts that we considered audit adjustments since they were identified and corrected as part of the audit process.
nothing I should be like really concerned or worried about. I will skim through the audit. I will look at the actual.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay.
I guess I would reiterate, you have unmodified opinions over your financial statement, and that is what you want. It states that your information is materially correct.
Other questions?
I just had one last one, sorry.
No, sorry.
I guess just, I don't, and excuse me, staff, if this is like the incorrect, inappropriate time, or just, or you're not ready, but like any response that you have for any of their, findings or whatever, I mean, that you'd want to share with us.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I agree with the findings and with the information that's been shared with you today. I think Mr. Rogers before me, as well as myself, have shared with you some of the struggles of staffing in the finance department. And certainly we had a vast amount of knowledge transition out of the accounting team. And so lots of learning, empty seats. And I'm really excited to be in a position where we have an accounting manager who's got a CPA. We've got our controller who's on board, who's got good accounting background. We have a couple of vacancies in our accounting team, but we have made an offer to one. We're working on making an offer to another, so we're going to have a full team. We've adjusted some of our actual physical setup so that we can be a more productive team in the accounting as we're learning, being able to learn from each other. And one of the silver linings, if you will, of staff turnover is as you're learning things, you're documenting it. And so we have a lot of people who are learning how to do processes, and we're doing some of the documentation that had just been known by a person who'd done it for 15 years. And so we're taking advantage of the fact that we've got new people learning things to develop training, to build those processes so that we've got that foundation. I don't really want any more staff turnover. We've got a good team going, but we'll be prepared if we do have folks that decide to pursue other options in their career. Likewise, we've been putting a big push within the Department of Finance to get policies written that are either internal, like just within finance, this is how we're going to do things, or citywide. We've done things, we haven't had it written down. So let's write this down as a policy and just make it part of what we have. And so I think it's both of those things: getting staff experience, getting documentation, getting policies written. Not something that's going to happen within a month or two, but I think we are headed in the right direction. And certainly we're leveraging as many opportunities as we can to bring in expertise and get training and work through the process so that we can close out our books, have reviewed our financial statements before we say we're ready for the audit, which I think is just in that alone will make a huge difference in the experience that the auditors have, because we won't be saying, oh, are you on draft 2 or draft 3? Because I'm already on draft 5. Let me swap out where you are. And so I think just the timeliness of being able to close out our books is going to make a huge difference.
That.
Anything else? I have one just quick one here for staff also. I mean, I think following up on that, really great to see, improvement and forward progress. Is there anything this body can do to help?
Thank you. Great question. Continue being supportive, amazing, and helping us out as we have questions. I think, the work that you do on a regular basis makes a difference. I know I appreciate the conversations that we have so that I know what you're worried about and what you're thinking about. And, I don't know that I would have any specific requests for you. I appreciate the latitude that we've had to be able to problem solve as we're going through with transition and turnover.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Tarver, for being here. Super helpful. That brings us to next meeting date, which is July 10th. We may look at canceling that, so stay tuned. That's my hope. And that brings us to adjournment.